Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists. This is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Hurricane season is here as Florida still recovers from one of the most consequential hurricane seasons in decades. In today's season debut of Tracking the Tropics, an all-star cast of meteorologists are here with us in the Stream Center and beyond on what to expect this year and how to be best prepared. Welcome into the Stream Center, folks, your hurricane headquarters for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. JB Buno here again with an all-star cast of meteorologists. You know the hosts of the program, you know them well. Rebecca Barry, Amanda Holly here with us at WFLA, part of the Max Fender 8 weather team and formerly of the Max Fender 8 weather team, joining us from WKRG News 5 in Mobile, Alabama. I think this might be his third consecutive season opener with us. It's Chief Meteorologist Ed Bloodsworth joining us over Zoom. It is good to have everyone here with us. We are here to answer your questions on this program. On social media, you can use any of the hashtags that you see around your screen. And a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be answering your questions as we do here on the seventh season of the award-winning Tracking the Tropics. Before we hear from this all-star panel of meteorologists, let's send, of course, Amanda Holly over to the wall for the very latest. And Amanda, we are starting out hurricane season with just a little tiny itsy-bitsy thing to pay attention to, right?
It is the first of many yellow, orange, red blobs that we are going to have over the next 6 months. Yes, hurricane season lasts all the way through the end of November. So let's go ahead and get to it and track it. This one is not one. It's not it. This is not it. But we are keeping an eye on it. The National Hurricane Center did highlight this area yesterday. Zooming on in, you can see the X where it's at. It's embedded within all of this moisture, this shower and thunderstorm activity that's over South Florida, the Bahamas, even stretching back through Cuba. This is kind of a stalled boundary that moved in a couple of days ago. It's brought some unsettled weather to Florida. And yes, it's going to lift back to the north. And a couple of our forecast models are hinting at the possibility of it spinning up briefly before it quickly moves out into the Atlantic. I mean, you can look at the development chances. They're very low, 10% over the next 2 days, 10% over the next 7 days. What this is really gonna do, it's gonna keep bringing us tropical moisture to the state of Florida through Wednesday and into Thursday, and then it's gonna move out into the Atlantic, bringing some tropical moisture to the coastline of the Carolinas. But you can kind of see some of these wind barbs. They're trying to close off there. And if this can hold, if this tropical moisture can hold out over the Atlantic waters for any period of time, it'll probably quickly spin up, but it is going to quickly move out into the Atlantic and take all of that tropical moisture with it and really not impact anyone. So that's the kind of storm we like to see this time of year. We're actually going to be tracking another front that's going to come in, kind of stall out over the area as that system moves out into the Atlantic. This is kind of what we look for this time of year. Late season fronts that come in, stall out, and they take advantage of, you know, the relatively warmer waters of the Gulf. We have the Gulf Stream that's going up down the eastern seaboard as well, and they can kind of see quick spin-ups, if you will, this time of the year. But really, the impacts from this is we're looking at some moisture over the next few days. First, it is already impacting Florida. We're seeing a lot of tropical moisture down in South Florida today. We had it in the Tampa Bay area yesterday. And as that tropical moisture moves to the coast of the Carolinas, you can see some of these brighter colors showing up through Saturday. Some of this rainfall forecast accounting for maybe 2 up to 3 inches, with localized areas seeing maybe 4 to 6 inches of rain if you can get some of these downpours to sit along the coast. Now, this is the GFS model, something that we talk a lot about here on Tracking the Tropics. And then, of course, we also show the European model, and it's basically showing a very similar setup. A wet, a soggy forecast through the next couple of days for the state of Florida, and then that moisture is going to move out into the Atlantic. There's a couple of differences. Notice these brighter colors stay kind of off the coastline of the Carolinas. So the European model suggesting that center of moisture staying a little bit out over the Atlantic waters, keeping the heaviest rain there. But that's what we're looking at, is some rainfall with that system there. That one is not the one that we are going to be worried about this year on Tracking the Tropics. But this is where we look during the month of June. Very typical to see that this time of year. We look in closer to home into the warm waters of the Gulf, maybe into the Caribbean a little bit, and up the eastern seaboard, because those fronts come in, they stall out, and we can see quick spin ups utilizing some of that warm Gulf waters. As we look to the rest of the season, though, the forecast, NOAA and CSU calling for a slightly above average season, not calling for quite as active of a season as what we had last year. NOAA's calling for 13 to 19 named storms. Mind you, average is 14 named storms. CSU's calling for a little bit higher than that. Hurricanes, 6 to 10. Colorado State's calling for 9 hurricanes. 4 major hurricanes from them, and then NOAA right there in that range, 3 to 5. So we are going to be watching every single thing that the National Hurricane Center highlights this year. That one is the first one of many. Don't want to get you concerned. One thing that we have also been seeing a lot on social media is the GFS pointing to that long range forecast. It's been shared a lot, where it's spinning up something over the Caribbean and bringing it into the Gulf. That one has not come to fruition yet either. So something that we're going to continue to see a lot over the next 6 months, likely the GFS producing those long range storms. But you can see when we start to see that typical activity ramp up, it is not just yet.
No, but can we talk about everyone posting the GFS 10 days out?
Oh my gosh.
Stop.
Please stop.
Just don't do it. Stop.
So fill me in, elaborate. So what's exactly going on? So, because that's a part of this show, everybody, is kind of quieting some of the easily excitable people on social media and bringing you the reality of what's actually going on out there.
So what I tell people to think about is I get paid whether I post anything on Facebook or not today. I get paid to do my job as a meteorologist. There are a lot of people on social media that are getting paid through social media. So if they don't post, and if they don't post something that gets a lot of likes and shares and interaction, they don't get paid that day. And so that leads them to make different decisions than I would on social media, and some of them that I would consider not the best decision, because if this is never going to happen, if that's never going to occur, if it's too uncertain, why post it? Why upset people? And so it's led to the fact that we have to talk about on television and on these programs, no, we're not going to see a Category 4 hurricane in 10 days in the Gulf. That's just not going to happen. Or the confidence is so low, it's not even worth worrying about at this point. And so I just want people to think about who they follow on social. Think before you share one of those posts. Is that person getting paid today, whether or not they posted that or not? And what are the motives? If the confidence is that low, it doesn't deserve any time in your brain or your day.
Yeah, and especially coming off of such a terrible season for Florida, with so many folks who are going to be recovering for the next, couple of years. There's just a heightened sense of anxiety, and storm anxiety is a real thing. We saw it here after the record 2020 season, when the northern Gulf Coast seemed like we had a storm almost every 2 weeks, and so and folks, their nerves are just heightened now. So in a very stressful time, as folks are trying to rebuild their lives, get everything back to what will be their new normal, the last thing you want to do is to scare them with nonsense. And so that's why you need to trust your local sources, your local meteorologists, and the folks that are trained to interpret model data, interpret numerical weather data, so that we know, give folks the information that's right and accurate, and not just needlessly trying to stir up feelings as we head into, as you guys just mentioned, what will be likely be a bit more active of a hurricane season this year.
So I want to touch on that with all three of our panelists here, our meteorologists joining us on the season debut of Tracking the Tropics, again live from the Stream Center across all our many platforms. This is a call to action for, I see all of our Facebook commenters commenting right now. Isaac, Ian, Dennis, Henry, Cliff. If you'd like to comment, use any of our hashtags on your screen, and we're going to feature your comments in just a moment. But Rebecca, Amanda, Ed, what are we expecting this year with hurricane season? Are there any trends that have developed over the last several weeks, whether it's from NOAA, CSU, or something that you noted? Is there anything that you're watchful for this year? Because last year in particular, Florida got hit with a hammer. Let's just call it what it is. Florida was impacted by Helene, by Milton, by a couple of other storms as well. What's something in particular that you're looking out for this year? Ed, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Atlantic Basin, generally speaking, we're not really seeing much of a strong hint towards a stronger El Nino or La Nina cycle. We're kind of in this ENSO neutral phase, we call it. So, water temperatures in the Pacific are running close to average. That's what we would generally classify as a neutral phase. The other thing I noted is, remember this time last year, CSU and NOAA all predicted kind of what we were calling hyperactive seasons, and with good reason. We had a evidence of a La Nina pattern shaping up, very, very warm, near historic warmth across the Atlantic Basin. Water temperatures are still running generally above average, but not to the extent that we were seeing this year. So when the forecasts were released, they weren't really shocking to I think to most of us, trending a little bit towards an above average season, not quite as significant as last year, at least in terms of the numbers in the forecast. So that, I mean, it really wasn't all that shocking, but these forecasts are great for us to talk about and talk about with the public, but they shouldn't have any bearing in how you prepare for the season.
And with it being in the neutral pattern, I am interested to see how the MJO, that oscillation may play a bigger part in this season, where the storms form, where they end up. And once again, we're hoping it is not Florida's turn.
Yeah, we definitely need a break this year. I agree. We show the forecasts that Colorado State puts out, that NOAA puts out, because people are interested in it. But I don't love talking about how many storms are going to possibly form this year, because it really doesn't matter. That is my message every single year. If one storm forms and it comes here, it's a bad year. So those forecasts, when you see that, and you see an above average year, it starts to increase your anxiety, and it really shouldn't, because you really shouldn't worry about every single storm that forms. You should worry about the storms that are possibly going to come here. But the ways that you can lessen that worry are preparing now. And, we talk about the things that you can do ahead of time, right? Prepare your kit, replenish your supplies if you had to use them last year, do some things around your house, which actually, because we saw storms last year, you probably had to do some cleanup around your house already, right? You had to look at your gutters and look at the trees that are around your house and maybe trim up some of those loose branches. So there are things that you can do now to lessen your anxiety. And listen, storms, they definitely increase folks' anxiety, and I totally understand that. But we don't have to worry about 14 storms coming to the Tampa Bay area, the state of Florida. They're not all going to go to the same location. So we'll walk you through every single one that does that could be headed our way, and we'll track every single one.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because not only are we going to walk you through this hurricane season with some of the best meteorologists in the business, folks, but we're also going to be quite literally answering your questions. And that's the core function. If you've never seen Tracking the Tropics before, again, we're on our 7th year doing this. It's an interactive show. The entire point is to help put you a little bit more at ease, be prepared for hurricane season, not be terrified of hurricane season, to understand the science behind it, and to best be prepared for both you and your family. And that's where we get to now, the Meteorologist Q&A. And what this is you can use a hashtag that you see on your screen, hashtag Hey Rebecca, hashtag Hey Amanda, hashtag Hey Ed, and we can answer your questions just like this. And it wouldn't be a season debut of Tracking the Tropics if we didn't have a question about the Saharan dust. Right? Applause button for Tony with this hashtag Hey Amanda question. What happened to the dry Sahara desert sands coming across? And Amanda, right on cue, you have a graphic ready to go to answer Tony's question.
Yeah, we've been talking about it all week, because we've already seen a little bit kind of make its way toward us, but there has been this big plume coming across the Atlantic over the past 5 days or so. It's now moving over the Caribbean islands, and as we advance this in time, it is going to make its way into the state of Florida, the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to kind of linger and meander all the way through about Saturday. This is going to give us some very hazy sunrises and sunsets. You'll notice it in the sky. And as we head into the weekend and we start to see some more sunshine come back out, it's going to make a very hot days as well. So Sahara dust, it is coming across the Atlantic. We're going to see another plume making its way. This is by the end of the weekend and into next week. Another thick plume is going to come in. That's why we don't see the activity ramp up super quickly at the beginning of the season, because this dust, it helps us out. We like it.
Love the dust.
It's there.
Is this early on time for Saharan dust?
On time. This is normal.
Okay.
Yeah, we typically see dust, June and into July, and then it starts to taper off as we get toward peak into August.
And so
Nice sunsets.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Ed, so will you see it in Mobile?
Well, yeah, actually, it's funny, right? Because right now, you showed sort of a light plume there early on in this model, and we're getting actually some of that into the Gulf. But actually, what we're getting a lot of right now is a lot of the smoke coming down from those Canadian wildfires, and they're providing us with some very interesting sunsets. Got some amazing images last night down here, but yeah, dust tends to be our friend. Early in the seasons, kind of helps to tap down on all the activity. So if you by the end of the week, you can see that spreading through the Gulf states. So, get your cameras ready. You're going to have some amazing sunsets as we head towards the weekend.
And send in the photos. WFLA.com/report it. Shout out. Report it to WFLA.com, and we can spotlight some of those photos over the course of this hurricane season. It doesn't always need to be damage and destruction. We can, yes, showcase some of the beauty that Mother Nature has to offer with Saharan dust providing for spectacular sunsets. Let's go to Rebecca Barry with this question. Jennifer on Facebook Live saying #Hey Rebecca. And again, we are looking right now live for your questions and comments off of Facebook Live, saying, how will warm ocean temperatures come into play this season?
Well, what's interesting about Jennifer's question is for the past 2 years, we've been talking about how unprecedentedly hot the Gulf had been and the Atlantic had been leading up to the season. And we talked about how that was providing more energy, more ACE for those storms to feed off of. It led itself to storms. Basically, rapid intensification was a higher possibility. We expected more rainfall within those storms. We saw a lot of inland flooding as a result. We are not looking at terribly above average temperatures across the Gulf and across the Atlantic right now. And that is a good thing. It doesn't mean we're not going to have hurricanes, but it means we're going to be less likely to see rapid intensification. We're going to be less likely to have those stronger storms without the energy. Now, do I think as the season progresses, we'll get right back up to where we were? Most likely. But we're not starting off out of the gate unprecedentedly hot, and that makes me kind of hopeful.
Mm-hmm. And then add Amanda and Ed before we move on from water temperatures.
Yeah, I just have the available ocean energy pulled up here. Last year when we were looking at this map leading into the season, you saw a lot more brighter colors. Listen, the Caribbean's always warm. It's deep there and it can hold warm water. And we're seeing that, but it's not as widespread as we saw last year. So again, starting out with a lower available energy going into the season is always favorable. So that's what we're looking at right now. We'll see how the season progresses. I mean, water temperatures have, even in the Gulf next to us in the Tampa Bay area, have come up pretty significantly in the past just 3 weeks or so. So we're going to see those water temperatures warm up, but I like that we're not going in with the record warmth.
From Rebecca to Rebecca. Rebecca Johns on Facebook Live. #Hey Rebecca for meteorologist Rebecca Barry. When do we usually start seeing storms? Yes, hurricane season starts in June, but there's always the expectation that we could see development in these months, but really the ramp up is what you see here on your screen, right?
Absolutely. We've had preseason storms. That's not uncommon for us to get a storm in May. We've actually had a storm in every single month, even those rare December and January storms. I think we've had like 1 or 2, but really it's late August and all of September that I get really worried. And then by mid-October, I'm kind of relaxing. Now, last year was, of course, odd with Milton being so late in October, but it's really that second week of September is the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. And what that means is that's typically when we have the most named or numbered systems across the Atlantic. That's September 15th. Now, for the Tampa Bay area specifically, we worry a little bit more in August and October just because of the way that storms are steered that time of the year. It's really more of an East Coast September issue. That's not to say that we can't see odd storms. We do all the time. But it's really August and October that's a little bit more of a concern for the Tampa Bay area.
And Ed, that's why the middle of the alphabet is always where, when you're getting into I think, do we have a Karen on the list this year, by the way?
We've got a Rebecca and a Barry.
Oh, okay. You have the names list. Wait, there's a Rebecca this year?
Yes. So
Rebecca, but different spelling. Let's take this full screen. Let's show everybody.
So we've had one tropical storm Rebecca in my 19-year career. I was very excited. We were live on air when it formed, and she was pretty true to form. She was mild. She went to the islands for the weekend. I was very proud.
I like it.
All of the seasonal predictions do get us to Rebecca, by the way.
Okay.
That would take us through Barry as well.
Yes. Well, I think Barry's,
inevitable.
Amanda and I were talking, the I names are going to start getting weird because I's most retired. And
because we're in the 2025 season, the social media age we live in, I think a lot of folks are going to have a lot of fun with, hopefully it's not a big storm. Hopefully it's one of those that stays out, but I think folks are going to have some fun with Karen. You're going to see a lot of
Yeah.
on social media. But thankfully, even though the list of names, at least for us in the meteorologist on-air broadcast Mets, there aren't too many difficult names and controversial names that you got to figure out three different ways to maybe say it. I think it's just Fernan is the F.
Fernan, and
Yeah.
isn't it Umberto?
Umberto.
Umberto, yeah,
Umberto
exactly.
is one we've had before. I
Yeah,
remember Umberto.
yes, yeah.
Well, we have
It-
one more year till Isaias is back.
Oh my goodness.
That'll come back around.
Let's get to the final two questions. Or actually, I think we're on maybe to the last question. Yeah, no, I think this is the last one for this episode. And it comes from Cliff, a regular on Tracking the Tropics. Hashtags for Amanda and I. Could the Atlantic system circle back? And I think, it's interesting because the words that we choose on this show are very deliberate. And I think calling this a system, right, is probably, it's not a system, is more, it's just like what's the proper terminology?
Right now, we just have an area of some tropical moisture that could possibly organize. And I'll bring this map back up. See the blob of tropical moisture.
The blob. There's the
we
weather
love that
term.
word here. As it kind of moves out into the Atlantic, we could start to see some of those wind barbs wrapping around, closing off just a little bit more. But we're still in the season where we're getting these late fronts coming in. That's what's going to kind of sweep it out into the Atlantic. Not worried about this one kind of wrapping back around at all. As we, go into the later months of June, again, where we look is basically in the Gulf, down toward the Caribbean. We call it the Central American Gyre. There's a general area of low pressure over Central America. We can see storms form on that, either on the Pacific side or the Atlantic side. And then we look along the eastern seaboard as well. So not really worried about that one.
Yeah, no, that's fortunate because whenever you see something pop up on NOAA's map, you're just like, okay, where is it and how bad is it expected to be? But you guys have the advanced model data that shows exactly. I mean, my goodness, we were talking about models so much last year, and people were loyal subscribers to certain models, whether it was the GFS, the Euro, or some of the AI models that have been introduced.
Euro
in
AI
years
has been
past.
kind of fun.
It'll be interesting to see how that one does for the second year in a row, because it did pretty good with landfalls last year.
It did.
Something amazing. I actually was looking back because this is going to mark 20 years since Hurricane Katrina on the Gulf Coast, and I was actually looking back at some of the older forecast cones that the NHC was putting out. If you look at a forecast cone from 2005 versus what you see now, I mean, it's feels like you're going from caveman drawings to full AI. That's what it feels like here. I mean, as devastating as these storms are, the forecasting technology that we've had surrounding, especially the tracks of these storms have just come leaps and bounds just in the last 20 years. And now we're starting to get a little bit better with this, seems more common phases of rapid intensification, which are very complex, very complicated phases that these storms will undergo. A lot of different factors have to lead to that, but we have come a very, very long way since the days of that 2004 and 2005, those big record seasons. But yeah, it's hard to believe 20 years this year, guys, since Katrina became the most devastating natural disaster in modern American history. Absolutely incredible that's been that long.
Yeah, and one that changed the game for meteorologists across the country. Just the science behind how we look and evaluate hurricanes and tropical storms. This final comment we're gonna get in on this show, folks. It comes from Steve. We've already started our hurricane season here in the Eastern Pacific. Yeah, storms already have formed off of the California and Mexican coast, but since the water is so cold here in Southern California, they all fizzle out before they reach us, and it didn't fit there, but I'm going to read it off of Facebook. The ocean water barely gets to 70 degrees in the summer, so there's nothing to fuel the hurricanes. What do we say to Steve's comment here, you guys?
Yeah, that's why we see those storms kind of move out into the Pacific as opposed to moving off to the north, because those water temperatures, they get chilly pretty quickly. And that's because that water direction is coming from the north. So it's coming from, the chillier areas.
Alaskan current.
The Alaskan current. There you go. Not a meteorologist on the West Coast.
Meanwhile, the Gulf Stream, hot.
Hot. Yeah.
Hot.
Some final housekeeping notes before we wrap up the season debut, season 7 of Tracking the Tropics. A big round of applause to the entire Tracking the Tropics team. We just found out in the last week that we were the recipient of a regional Edward R. Murrow Award for our coverage of Hurricane Helene last year. It just goes to show how much this program has grown over the last several years especially, and it's really on the strength of the entire team, both in front of and behind the camera, all of the Nexstar meteorologists that come onto the show, including Ed Bloodsworth, who I think has set the record, maybe right up there with Hank Allen in New Orleans as far as being our most common featured meteorologist. Shout out to Rachel Tucker, our producer on this show as well. It's really a team effort. It takes teamwork to make the stream work, and we're really super proud of reaching that accomplishment. And with that, Ed, the final housekeeping note, with you being our featured meteorologist on this debut episode, the final 60 seconds are yours.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it feels like a debut episode here. I think Jim Dance would call it like tradition unlike any other, or like any other in the like Masters. But yeah, obviously, things are getting started now. We've got our first, as mentioned, blob of the season. Thankfully, it's going to be not a significant issue, but we preached every year. The time to prepare is not when you're in the error cone from the NHC. The time to prepare is well ahead of time now. So as you're heading to the grocery store, if you can afford, pick up another little pallet of water to put into part of your kit. Grab a couple of cans of non-perishable food, and just continually keep your supplies stocked up. Have your evacuation plans ready to go. Just hopefully they just sit there collecting dust, but should you need to put them into action, you know exactly what needs to happen to try to make your preparation as smooth and easy as possible. And then also start thinking about after the storm. I know a lot of folks in Florida and the Carolinas, Georgia, are in Texas from Beryl earlier last year are dealing with it now. There are steps you can do now. Have your insurance check up, make sure you know what is covered and what is not. A lot of things you need to start doing right now to prepare. Hopefully you don't have to put them into fruition, but if you do, you're ready to go.
For Ed Bloodsworth, Amanda Holly, and Rebecca Barry, I'm JB Buno. Thank you for joining us on the Season 7 debut of Tracking the Tropics for Nexstar Nation. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Weekly episodes Tuesday at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, and additional episodes when storms form.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.